Good morning, everyone. All right, so I am actually just in the process of responding to some students' homework assignments inside of study school. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity for me to show you how I give students feedback inside of study school, what the homework assignments in study school look like, and how I really teach students how to utilize the resources that they're given to succeed and prepare for exams. So, this is the homework assignment that a student completed for week one of study school. Week one of study school, we really focus in on learning how to get the most out of your syllabus and really go through it in a manner that helps you to not only be able to do well on your exams, but know what to focus on when you're reading, what to pay attention to when you're writing your notes, which textbooks you should buy and which ones you can get away with not buying, and starting to predict test questions so that you can better create a study plan that helps you to feel like you know exactly what's going to be asked of you. You can anticipate the way that it's going to show up on the exam. And so then when you're studying, you're making sure to check all of those things off. So this student is currently taking a biology class, and this is the syllabus that they gave me for their professor. This is a syllabus that their professor gave them. So the three things that I teach students to look for in their syllabus is obviously the one that we all think about. It's putting in when all of your quizzes and your exams are going to be, so that you have all of that inside of your planner. The second thing that I have students look at is really learning how to figure out how to best communicate with their professor. So in this case, this professor, Dr. Michael Kempf, he prefers to be contacted directly by phone or email and not through the Canvas inbox. So when you are asking questions, when you're asking for support, when you're trying to set up office hours that are different than the ones that he has here for you, because he said you can do it by appointment if these times don't work, you're better off doing it either by calling him in the office, or by emailing him to set that up. The third thing that we talk about in study school in regards to your syllabus is utilizing the course description and the course learning outcomes or objectives to give you insight on the possible test questions that you're going to get on your exam. And so this student first figured out the personality type of her professor. And the reason why this is important is because inside of study school, I teach you how to communicate with your professor based off of their personality type. And me going through this syllabus, this is correct for this student. This professor is definitely an emerald personality type, which means that she's going to need to be on her A game and make sure that she's doing her due diligence before she goes and asks for help and support with this particular professor. And inside of study school, I give students like email templates and things like that. So if you are somebody who really struggles with, like, I don't know what to say when I go to office hours, or I don't know what to say in this email to get the feedback that I want from this professor, you can tailor it based off of their personality type using the scripts that I give you inside of study school. The next thing that she did was she's figured out what she was going to be learning inside of her class, and she's getting that information from the course description and the course outcomes. So what she did was copy and paste the course outcomes. So the first thing that you want to do is look at the course description and read it thoroughly. So this is an introductory course designed for science majors that investigate cell and molecular biology, including biochemical processes, cellular function, genetics, and the biology of microbes. So in this sentence, you are getting an overview of everything that you're supposed to be able to talk about intelligently and answer questions about intelligently in your exam and once you're done with the course. This course also has a laboratory component that includes the collection, analysis, interpretation of cellular and molecular data. So this introduction, this description, again, just gives you a basic overview. A lot of the information on what you can expect to see on your exam is going to come from your course outcomes and your course objectives. So in this case, by the end of this semester, this is what the student will be expected to be able to do. So this is what your professor is going to be testing you on, because they need to make sure that they're doing their job. There needs to be a way for them to gauge whether or not you are getting out of the class what you're supposed to get. And so by requirement, they need to lay that out for you. So this professor is saying, in order for me to give you an A in this class, in order for me to give you a passing grade in this class, you need to prove to me that you can define and explain the fundamental elements of cell biology, of organismal biology, and of ecology. Now, we know that cell biology probably has a lot of elements and components to it that we don't know about, but we're going to learn about that in class. And I need to be able to make sure that I can define and explain all of the different elements that are inside of cell biology. I need to be able to make sure that I can define and explain organismal biology. And I need to be able to define and explain on an exam ecology. But what does define and explain mean? What is that going to look like? How can I expect my professor to ask me a question that is going to test me on whether or not I can define and explain all of these different elements and these different categories in this bio class? Well, inside of study school, I give the students a cheat sheet. Oops, let me go ahead and bring that cheat sheet up. And this cheat sheet is called How to Predict Test Questions Using the Keywords Mentioned in Your Syllabus. And in here, based off of the words that your professor uses, you can expect these types of questions. And then I teach students how, based off of the questions, this is what you need to have in your study routine. This is what you need to focus on. You should use flashcards, or you should use the back of the book questions, all based off of the words that your professor is using in the course outcomes. So in the case of this student and her homework assignment, what she did was just basically lay out the different types of lecture exams and points in the semester where she's going to be tested on all of this stuff. The feedback that I'm going to give this particular student is to go even deeper with this, right? So you're going to be expected to define and explain. Well, you can anticipate that you're going to get a lot of multiple choice questions on the different elements of cell biology, which means that you're going to need to know what those definitions are. You're going to be asked to explain those different elements, and explanation is a higher level question, which means you're going to need to know the how and the why. Again, define and explain concepts of genetics, evolution, and the influence that it has on biological diversity. So by defining, you're just going to need to know the definitions of all the genetic components or the genetic concepts. You're going to need to know the definition of all of biological diversity. But in this explain, you can expect to probably see short answer questions, compare and contrast questions, questions that ask you to differentiate between genetics and biological diversity, or how they're going to be related. And again, the way that we know this is based off of this cheat sheet that I give students inside of study school, and I teach them all of the different levels of questions that they can expect to see on their exam and how they can prepare for those questions, so that no matter what question is thrown at them on the exam, they're able to answer it, because they've made sure that in their notes, they have that information included. They've made sure that when they're testing and quizzing themselves and going through flashcards, that they're asking themselves to look at the information in a particular way that will allow them to be able to answer questions thoroughly, answer really difficult questions on the exam. And this is really what study school is all about. Study school teaches you how to learn, how to think like a professor, how to think your way through getting A's and B's. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight on, some of the concepts that we teach inside of study school. And what I'm going to do now is actually go through and give this student feedback, because every time you do something inside of study school, I'm taking a look at it, I'm responding, I'm helping you to make it better so that you learn how to learn, you learn how to think, so that you're not always constantly relying on other people in order to do well on the exam. This is where your tutoring center gets it wrong. And I'm going to be talking about that later next week about, how not knowing how to study is costing you money in college and why you always feel like the tutoring center isn't helping you and other different things. So if you have any questions about what we went over here, if you have any questions about study school, feel free to leave it in the comments.